the slap, the trauma, and the drama. Yeah, what's going on, party people in the place to be? I go by the name of the BK Apologist, transmitting all the way live. New York is the city, Brooklyn is the borough. What's good? What's poppin'? Happy Wednesday to everybody. I hope everybody's having a good middle of the week. Of course, we gotta say what's up to the party people in the chat. We got Bodega Lady D New and Michelle Turner on the check-in. We got my man Benjamin Handelman in the building. We got Alejandro. Que lo que, mijo? What's going on? Man, we got knowledge and relationships. What's going on? Salute, salute. And as always, if you have not already, please like, share, and subscribe. Please send this link to your, personal curated spaces on the interwebs. Tell a friend to tell a friend that it's him again. And also, if you like how it goes down with the BK Podcasts, you can send a nice little donation, in my Umar Johnson voice, via PayPal, BK Apologists. Or if you like to be a monthly supporter of BK, you could become a patron where you get an assortment of goodies that enhances your personal Bible study. So, with that being said, I have a very, very good friend, fellow partner in the gospel, an amazing man of God, um, became a father yet again, somewhat recently. Of course, I'm talking about my man, Kyle Spears. What's going on, sir?
Brother, I appreciate being on again. I got my daughter in my lap, feeding her, bro. My wife had to work, so we gonna do it, bro. We gonna do what we do, bro. And let's do this, man.
Now,
So
listen,
if you hear her, you know.
we know what it is. We know what it is. You're multitasking. Being a girl dad. You know what I mean? It's an adventure, I'm sure. So, um, now let me be very honest with the people in the chat. I wasn't gonna tackle this topic at all. I want to put it out there. It's actually Kyle's fault that we're doing this, and here's why. Obviously, everybody and literally everyone and their mom has been speaking about this on social media, right? I mean, people who you've never seen posted in months all of a sudden had something to say. I mean, I saw people in my timeline. I forgot they actually were on social media. It's like, you got an account on Facebook? Wow. You know what I mean? It's like everybody has something to say. And then, my peoples, right? Miss Titus 2 and Kevin Benton Jr., they a couple of days ago, they covered it. So it's not like the UA hasn't have, we talked about it. So I was like, okay, well, the UA already discussed it. We good. I don't gotta say nothing. But then I get this phone call from Mr. Spears. And he's like, listen, man, we need to address this. And the only reason why I want to is because Carl has a very special set of skills.
Are we
that
about to you about to put on Liam Neeson, bro?
he has a very special set of skills that lends itself to this particular subject matter. And I mean, he literally does have a expert opinion about this. So I'm like, well, you know what? I feel like Mr. Spears brings a certain nuance and insight. So because of that, I'm like, you know what? Let's go and let's talk about it. So with that being said, Kyle, for those who don't know who you are and what you do, if you could give us a quick rundown of your personage and how you get down. So,
Yeah. My name is Kyle Spears. I'm a marriage and family therapist. I work in private practice, treating complex trauma, PTSD, dissociation, stuff that is just really, really hard. And I started a YouTube channel a couple of years ago now, and that's going okay. Like I'm like, wow, people they're digging this. With trauma, it's like, are people going to tune in? Trauma makes your head hurt and your heart hurt. So, but it's growing. I'm going to speaking. I got writing. I mean, dude, there's so much, and but I'm grateful. There's a lot of the needs are tenfold.
absolutely, absolutely, and we need people like you that that bring a certain skill set, because it's not just the clinical understanding and application, but you also are inspired by the word of God when it comes to dealing with trauma. So I
Mm.
definitely appreciate that. And we'll be using all of those skills today in this particular subject. So with that being said, let's start with a 50,000 foot view, right? And then we'll start closing in. What was your initial thoughts? Now, did you see this live or did you catch it like on a video clip?
No, so what was crazy is I tuned in when Will was when he was getting his acceptance speech or something like that, and I had no clue what had happened. I thought he was just being emotional because he got best actor.
Right.
Then I come to find out what happened, and I'm like Will Smith? Oh, this ain't Will, bro. And of course, is it real and all of that. Then I see this dude in the audience, and that let me know where his head was.
Right. So when you finally saw the actual assault, because it was an assault. What was your initial thoughts of that?
So what's interesting, man, when he went up, he kind of stammered. Like, I don't know that he knew what he was going to do. But when I saw it, again, it just looked weird the way Chris Rock took it. It looked like I was watching was it WWF?
WWE, WWE.
WWE. Oh, I just broke religion. Sorry. And but no, it's just like, it's two parts of it. It was like Will Smith went up and went Philly on this dude, and then Chris Rock took it like,
Took it like a champ.
does this dude got a soul? You know what I mean? Like, and bro, if it hadn't been a Rock or something, please.
Right, right.
You know what I mean? But no, it was nuts, man. It was really painful to watch, to be honest.
So with that, right? So now, obviously, we don't know what lurks within the heart and mind of Mr. Will Smith. But here's my question to you, and I want you to get real nerdy for us when it comes to this. Your
Uh-oh.
response: when someone attacks, either physically or verbally, someone that we hold dear, a friend or family member, when that occurs, what are some of the things that's happening to you physically and mentally when you see a loved one being insulted in that manner?
The part of the brain that reacts to a physical threat is the same part of the brain that reacts to an emotional or relational threat. So we're dealing with the same part of the brain. This is where you get crimes of passion and so forth. So, and then let's go. You want me to go nerdy? Let's go nerdy.
Let's
When
go
you think
nerdy.
about how the brain develops, my daughter right here, literally, her brain is developing bottom up. So
Mm,
you have the core sort of system that runs our body, our lungs, our heart rate. And then on top of that, what develops next is our feelings. So our limbic system, our amygdala, and all of that. Fight, flight, freeze, attach, submit, all these different reactions that kind of happen at the bottom. And then there's a trigger here in the emotional part of the brain. And then at the top is the prefrontal cortex. This is the part that develops a little later in life. When someone says something like, let's say someone, lost their mind and came at my family or something, uh, my brain would go into a protective mode. It's you see red. People think it's a joke, right? There's these
mm,
things right beneath the surface that can trigger us. And when you react, you're not thinking. You're dealing with the part of the brain that doesn't ask for permission.
mm,
I was walking the other day. This is maybe a month and some change ago. And dude, so I'm walking, and this dog comes out of this yard and pounces or whatever. And then, dude, I'm sitting there, I freeze, and then I'm like, I don't know if I need to fight, if I need to run or whatever. And then all of a sudden, it comes for me, bro.
mm.
It came for my ankles. It tore my pants.
Oh wow.
Um, dude, I got out of there, and it was icy outside and all of that. Um, yeah, my brain was in protection mode. And dude, here's the crazy thing. My brain is really kind of like, what would have happened if my kids were there?
Mm,
So when you add relationships, you add reactivity.
mm. Now we saw. Well, I don't want to say there was a change of pace. Maybe there was. I'll ask you if that was the case. The initial response, he did laugh at the joke at first,
Yeah.
but then he looked at his wife and saw that the wife was totally not with the joke. And then he went from 0 to 60. What happened there?
Bro, this is what I'm trying to tell people. And I'm actually encouraged because if you go and you look at Charlemagne the God on Breakfast Club, Emmanuel Acho on Speak for Yourself, they have different takes on it that I really like that involved his brokenness. And when I think of what it took for him to get up when it wasn't his turn, when I think about when he first went up and you notice he paused and then he loaded up and hit Chris.
Right.
Dude was on a different level. Like there's things beneath the surface in all of us. In the right situation, we will react. There's a couple of things, man. I really want to be careful, man, because a lot of this stuff is speculative. But the stuff with him and his wife,
Right.
the entanglement and all of that. And then the fact that I learned, I think it was Charlemagne had mentioned in his book, when he was young, he watched his father abuse his mother physically.
Mm.
That type of stuff goes on ice, right? Until we get a trigger. And then something reacts in us, right? Again, it's that emotional part of the brain and the reactive part of the brain at the bottom that basically go to work. And I believe something got triggered for him when he looked at his wife. Now, I do struggle a little bit just because he laughed at first, but who knows what he was feeling when he's laughing.
Right.
Like, dude didn't have control. And so to me, it was a power move. The whole situation was about taking back control because then he sits in his chair and he's like, just enunciated the whole thing.
Syllable. Very clear.
Oh my gosh.
Very clear.
Anger gets boundaries up. Guilt takes them down.
Wow.
So
Say it again. Say it again.
Anger puts boundaries up. Guilt takes them down.
Wow.
The problem with when you have anger that puts boundaries up is you have to stay angry in order to keep your boundaries up.
Mm.
So this dude set a boundary, and I'm not sure there was a boundary that his wife asked him to set. He was operating on something else. Something else was going on in his software programming.
So, all right. So now there's different types of trauma, correct?
Yes, sir.
So what would you file this event under? Like what form of trauma is this?
Well, okay, so trauma, I would say big T, little t trauma. And big T trauma is when something in our humanity is stripped from us. Little t trauma leaves us with some bit of resilience left. So, there's a lot of little t trauma, and then you have big T trauma. This event was multifaceted. Like, so when you have big T trauma, it typically is complex trauma. So complex trauma is when you have trauma over a period of time. And it's trauma has very durable effects. So something that happens at 5 can affect you when you're 55, which is why it's so disorienting. And so, and trauma is a distinct type of suffering. It's not like other things that heal over time. This was on ice. I always use this term on ice. Ice means that you froze everything about it. Like its properties are intact. When he got triggered, I wouldn't be surprised if something in his kidhood got triggered, because part of when you go through trauma, the part of you that goes through the trauma stays young. So oftentimes when you're dealing with people, especially the complex trauma, developmental trauma, which is trauma that you get when you're developing and you miss developmental milestones, you got to go back to your kidhood. And so honestly, dude, if I was his therapist dude, I'm not diagnosing nobody, hear me, bro. If I was his therapist, man, we would open up a timeline. And I would be looking at some of what we call touchstone memories. Touchstone memories are the earliest wounds. And then our life kind of develops adaptations and we become reactive around certain things. We try to make ourselves feel safe. We accomplish things. We make money. Right. I mean, you hear him talking about fame, bro. He's a dick. Like here's what he said about fame, bro, in an interview. That fame makes him feel safe because he feels like at any point in time, he can always get the help that he needs. Like, he's always going to be the center of attention in some ways. And he's like, that makes me feel safe. Well, he did not feel safe at the Oscars. His fame wasn't protecting him. And that's a buffer he needs to take a look at. Bro, I'm not trying to diagnose somebody, though.
Right. I hear you. Now, so we see that event, right? We saw what triggered him. But now, from a meta perspective, it seemed like it triggered everyone else.
Oh gosh, bro.
Right?
Oh,
Um, Everybody has something to say, including us right now. Why is that the case? Why is this specific event resonate so deeply with so many?
part of it is this. When you look at why some people become resilient and some people become resentful, they go through the same situation. The question is, like, when you look at 9/11, why were they resilient and other people had ongoing issues? Well, what we learn about trauma is what you take with you into the trauma that makes the most difference in terms of later on.
Hmm.
Secondary trauma is where we experience something collectively. Now, here, think it just the last 24, 36 months with me, just for a moment. What have
Hmm.
we been through? Almost 8 billion people on this globe.
The plague, basically.
A lot of that trauma is unmetabolized. So when you don't have a mechanism that allows you to work through this stuff, again, when you think like collective trauma and so forth like that, it's kind of this like bystander effect. Everybody's wanting to know if it's real and if
Hmm.
somebody else is going to step up. So
Hmm.
I think two things could have happened. First of all, the situation was traumatizing because everybody felt unsafe. You just didn't have control. It was completely whatever. Some people probably had some of their own trauma got kicked up. So this is kind of what happens is, when we get triggered, the reactive protector part comes out and we start, making judgments and, you got to be careful about that type of stuff. But collectively, it was kind of mixed. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into that, but I would say there were people who absolutely got triggered. And here's the thing about trauma research. I'll just say this one last thing. It's direct or indirect. It's not always about if something is direct. You can
Hmm.
indirectly be affected and end up with symptoms that become unmanageable. So, I mean, Hollywood's rich. They can get therapists, whatever. I'm sure some people will need to process it.
Right. So let me throw a couple things that people have said about this throughout the internet. People are saying that Chris Rock deserved what he got because he has. This is not the first time he has targeted her when it comes to jokes. So what do you say about people who say that this is his just desserts?
Well, biblically speaking, show me in scripture. Well, I'm sure we got some Old Testament folks who would say, well, um, I don't believe, sorry, that's my wife. I don't believe that Chris Rock, quote unquote, deserved it. But I also believe that he needs to be held accountable. So, for example, kind of the group think around humor is problematic. And what I mean by that is typically what people do, especially males, is we add aggression to humor. Notice the next time you with your boys, most guys don't just do humor, they add aggression to it. And so Chris Rock, I mean, it's like David Chappelle. Like, you're not gonna win against these dudes ever.
Hmm.
Like, you don't, I mean, this is what they do.
Right.
Um, and so I think in terms of him, I I think there was a different way to approach it, to be honest with you. But you're dealing with the part of the brain that doesn't ask for permission. So yeah, I mean later on, but he's not pressing charges. And I'd love to know your thoughts on that. But like, I mean, it was a battery moment. Like, this was a battery charge.
Yeah. He committed a crime in front of everybody.
But again, bro, this is what I'm scared of as it relates to our humanity. When we do things that damage other people, it damages us too. You
Hmm.
know, you become less human based off of how you judge people. So I think Chris Rock probably does need to be. I mean, how do you hold him accountable, right? I mean, he was joking or whatever. And who knew that Will Smith was going to pop?
Right. Not him. That's for sure. What do you say? Because there are other people who are championing Will Smith because they feel like he was protecting his wife.
Yeah, this is what I noticed about Killmonger when Black Panther came out.
Uh oh.
There's this, we have militarized concepts of masculinity. Like when you look at the fruits of the spirit, it's interesting. Some people will look at the fruits of the spirit and they don't even realize that they are kind of sorting them between masculine and feminine,
Mm.
right? We got to make sure that we don't import our cultural under our cultural standards around gender into the scriptures as it relates to fruits of the spirit.
Mm.
And then, of course, he gets up there and he's talking about God, and we all know what Denzel said to him. I thought that was on point. He's coming to get you at your greatest, whatever. But Will Smith, I mean, dude, he was out of line. I mean, when you were turned physical, when you were verbally assaulted, and dude, I know about that. That's what my adolescence was. I know what it's like to be traumatically bullied or whatever. I think people have to start understanding that words are going to bring consequences. That being said, to champion that, like, was that the venue for that? I mean, let me ask you, Alfredo. I just would love to know kind of what your thought is. Do you think that was the moment?
Oh, obviously not. Obviously not. For various reasons, which we're going to get into later on, because there was so much else at stake at that moment, and whether he liked it or not, him and his wife bear the brunt of what was going on for that entire ceremony, and I'll explain what I mean by that later on. But there was so much else going on for just black and brown people at that moment, and they were the ones leading the charge. So for him to drop the ball at that point is traumatic in another way when it comes to just black people in the advancement in certain spaces. Now, one could argue who cares about advancing in those certain spaces, and that they have compelling arguments for that. But if you are trying to compete and become part of this space, what he did not help the advancement of that.
Well, okay, hold on. And I don't mean to do it. If it was anybody else but Will Smith, would they have been escorted out of the building?
That's a great question. And he wasn't escorted. He actually stayed. They tried to. He said, "No, I'm staying." That's a great question. I mean, would he have done that if it was someone else other than Chris Rock? Would he did that to Dave Chappelle? Dave Chappelle's a tall dude. I mean, I don't know.
The dude was a naked emperor. Like, seriously, think about it for a moment. Like, sometimes you can say whatever you want to me, but if you say something to the people that I love, and the dude is on rebuild. Like, I mean, this is a man. I mean, I'm sorry, but like when I looked at him, man, I mean, like, this is not an organized man. Like the way he got triggered and the way he reacted, dude was not. I mean, the cockpit was empty. Telling you, bro. And I would honestly love, I know this is off script, but I would love to know what Jada's position was. I'm sure you got that on there too, but
yes, I do.
She didn't do that,
Right. Actually, let's get into some of that. So what I want to do now is first I'm going to talk about Will Smith's apology to Chris Rock is only 160 words, is a masterclass in emotional intelligence. I'm going to ask you if you concur with that statement. So here's the apology. Violence in all its forms is poisonous and destructive. My behavior at last night's Academy Awards was unacceptable and inexcusable. Jokes at my expense are a part of the job, but a joke about Jada's medical condition was too much for me to bear, and I reacted emotionally. I would like to publicly apologize to you, Chris. I was out of line and I was wrong. I am embarrassed by my actions. Were not indicative of the man I want to be. There is no place for violence in the world of love and kindness. I would also like to apologize to the Academy, the producers of the show, all the attendees, and everyone watching around the world. I would like to apologize to the Williams family and my King Richard family. I deeply regret that my behavior has stained what has been an otherwise gorgeous journey for all of us. I am a work in progress. Sincerely, Will.
Well, what do you want me to touch on with it specifically?
Well, I mean, do you feel did he cover all the bases?
See, I like my boy Handelman over here in the chat. It sounds written by a lawyer. I think a publicist got a hold of it. Clearly, I mean, it's fair to have a publicist. It's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, he said, like, so when I hear that, I mean, he checked the boxes. However, he had a little bit of process time when he accepted the speech. Okay. And hear me out, bro. I'm not trying to come down. I don't think that we should be judged for our worst moments. I don't want to be judged for my worst moments.
Right.
But this is not a man who has a lot of insight. Like, I think he's been a comedian. I mean, the mask that people wear, you think of Robin Williams. See that coming? Bob Saget. You see that coming?
Mm.
Like, our comedians are carrying some pretty deep pain. So when I look at this, I look at a guy who's got he's got a journey. You know what I mean? Like, there's some things that are missing. I love that he said, that it was too much for me to bear and I reacted emotionally. But here's the thing about trauma. He would have, if you put him in the same position again, he'll react the same way. That's what happens when something is not healed, Alfredo.
Mm.
You put somebody in the same position with that unhealed part of them that's inches from the surface, and you're going to get a similar reaction.
Cool. So this is what the author of this article said about his apology. He says, a one sentence masterclass, quote, I'm embarrassed and my actions were not indicative of the man I want to be. Smith continues, this sentence alone is a masterclass in emotional intelligence. Let me explain why. Embarrassment is a very difficult emotion to deal with. When we're embarrassed, the last thing we want to do is come out in the open and admit wrongdoing. We prefer to hide under a rock. By acknowledging his embarrassment, Smith demonstrates courage and a willingness to face up to his actions.
I appreciate that, and yet, dude, when he accepted, he was really emotional.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, it was not that was not an organized man.
Mm.
I love Will Smith, and I wish him the best. Dude has some stuff to work through, just like I do, just like we all do.
Right.
But when he started mixing up God and like it just the spirituality, bro, hear me out. I'm not diagnosing anybody, Alfredo. I'm not diagnosing anyone.
Okay.
Bipolar is an interesting concept. I think it gets used too much. I think, unfortunately, people understand, the disease very well. But if it came out that he struggled with that, would I be surprised? That's all I'm saying.
Mm.
Just these swings, like it's kind of the carousel versus the roller coaster. Like, one's going the same direction, goes up and down a little bit. The other one goes crazy. And
Right.
he kind of feels more like a roller coaster than a carousel. So there's some emotional stuff going on that I care about him. I want to see him address it.
Right. And speaking of addressing, Jada actually came and made a statement pertaining to the situation, and says here, Jada Pinkett Smith breaks silence after husband Will slapped Chris Rock following alopecia joke. Jada Pinkett Smith has broken her silence following her husband Will's now infamous Oscar slap. Taking to Instagram this afternoon, she shared a post which read, quote, this is a season for healing, and I'm here for it. There was no caption on the post, and Jada turned the comments off, but many people assume it's referring to the incident which took place on Sunday night. And here's the actual post. So, this is a season for healing, and I'm here for it. Now, the statement in of itself, yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, every season is a time for healing, and we all should be there for that. But do you feel like is there a disconnect between this statement and what occurred?
Bro, the thing is that there's so much between Jada and Will. Like, I saw that part of the interview where they were with each other and like the whole entanglement is the way she described it. And he was like,
Right.
you know what I mean? They have. So here's the thing about marriage. It's a language that only two people speak. This is why divorce is so sad, because when divorce happens, there's a language that dies. What I would want to know is, what is their language? I mean, genuinely speaking, bro, I can honestly say, man, like there's so much going on in their marriage. So many people are going to be speculating. And I think I would love, I'm not saying I would want to see them, but just imagine getting them in the room and having them get organized and get the timeline. And it's like, I like the way she says season, because that means process to me. And that's the whole thing I'm coming from, Alfredo, is process. The process is the shortcut. For Will to get up and do that, bro, think about what he did. He got up out of his chair and did not care. 2 cents about their consequences.
Right.
Think about that. You have to be very wounded to do that. And she's kind of a bystander because the reality is what's she going to do? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, is she out of cards to play anyway? Like, do we really know? Man, you got me all getting all psychological and everything.
No, that's what you're here for.
I've
That's
been
why
working
we're
on
doing
it.
this
Anyway, go ahead.
because of that. But like I said, there's layers to this, right?
Yes.
Because what happened, I think maybe 2 years ago, they boycotted the Oscars, right? Hashtag Oscars so white, right? And they really had this campaign to really force the Academy to be more inclusive with people of color.
Mm.
And this was the case this year because producer Will Packer makes Oscars history by employing an all black production team.
Wow.
So the entire production of this year's Oscar was ran by people of color. And this is from Crystal Franklin from Twitter. And she broke it down. The EPs is Will Packer plus Shyla Cohen. Trophy presenters, 87 Mr. plus Miss NCAT. Co-host Regina Hall plus Wanda Sykes. The red carpet was hosted by Terrence J. Performance Beyonce. The Governor's Ball menu, Ghetto Gastro. The food was prepared by black chefs. So from the musical entertainment, from the presenters, from the red carpet, everything to the executive producer were people of a darker hue. So we went from Oscar so white to black as what that's trying to say. Um, so and this was brought about largely because of the stance that the Smiths took when it came to the Oscars.
Whew.
So for him to do that at this time, we see I forgot her name, the one she won her first Oscar for West Side Story. Uh um who else? Questlove won his first Oscar for best documentary. You know, so there's a lot of black firsts going on like crazy during this Oscar season, and we have this unfortunate first as well. So,
Well, yeah, go ahead.
so I want your take on. So there's a lot resting on these guys' shoulders. So for him to do this time, I mean, do you feel like there's going to be any reverberations for just the black community at large because of this unfortunate episode?
Yes and no. The reason why I'm gonna sound super cynical here. I heard something to the tune that the Oscars had gone down so much in terms of viewership that it's a fifth of what it used to be. A
That's
fifth.
true. That's true.
I saw a Facebook post. They're like, if it hadn't been for Will Smith, I wouldn't even known that there was an Oscars last night.
Right. Right.
I follow the money. I add, like, when I think theologically or even psychologically, I follow resources. So to me, yeah, it looks bad and all of that, but if it gets attention and it gets ratings,
Right.
and so when I think about the blast radius, yeah, there will be some negative impact and so forth, but this is on Will. You know what I mean? Like, I think that when you look at the bigger picture, this is on Will.
But it's true. But culturally speaking, you know what's going to happen because when one of us do something, all of us did it. That's just how white supremacy works, right? And the reason why I bring that up is because this wasn't the worst thing that occurred at an Oscars, right? Because here's another article: White outrage about Will Smith's slap is rooted in anti-blackness. It's inequality in plain sight. Most people agree the slap shouldn't have happened, but there's something that feels precious at best and downright racist at worst about white people's reaction to the now infamous smack. The Hollywood director Judd Apatow declared in a deleted tweet that Smith, quote, could have killed Rock. Seriously? Calling it pure out of control rage and violence. Apatow later confirmed he wasn't even watching the show when he made the remarks. The radio host Howard Stern compared Smith to Donald Trump, while white women on Twitter somehow decided that Smith's actions meant he must be beating his wife. Sheesh. It would seem that there's a layer of hyper violence that's being projected onto Smith simply because he is a black man who is defending his black wife. While it's justifiable, important even, to interrogate his motives for delivering the slap, was this really all about defending his wife or more about his own ego? It's clear that the backlash against Smith is rooted in not just anti blackness, but respectability politics as well. It's also not just about what Smith did, it's where he did it and who was watching. Anyone who has been following these shows can see that Smith is being held up to a much stricter standards than white men who have behaved just as badly or even worse in those settings. In 1973, Western star John Wayne had to be restrained by six security guards when he tried to rush the stage and attack the Native American actress and activist Shaheen Littlefeather. Littlefeather was on stage to accept the Best Actor award on behalf of Marlon Brando, who was boycotting the awards in protest of Hollywood's depiction of Native Americans. Wayne got to keep his award after the incident, but pending their review, Smith could very well have his historic Best Actor win revoked. Mind you, this is the same academy that gave Roman Polanski an award in absentia after he pled guilty to a charge of unlawful sex with a minor and then fled the country before he can be sentenced. The double standard is glaring.
Yeah. Yeah. So my take is always, and me and a brother, we're writing a book together on, um, gosh, trauma, racial trauma, and all of that. Like this stuff is real. I mean, black men in our society are looked at as menacing, right? Typically. And when something like this happens, of course, so what people don't really realize or they want to admit about racism is that it's system, it's a groupthink type of thing. The optics matter. Even when you think about how the brain receives information, when you think about a person's lifetime, when they receive information about certain cultures and the consistent messaging, it creates like grooves in our brain. And so, I mean, I've seen studies where people abreact when they see a person of color because part of what, anyway, so that's embedded. And to be honest with you, that is not going anywhere anytime soon. And I hate to I kind of need to be a broker of reality. Part of that is not going anywhere. The part that I want to be careful about is how Black people already internalize a lot of things. So, for example, Black exceptionalism, right? It's this, and it's unfortunate, but this is what happens with minorities in our country. Um, is that when one person's actions, because you share their color and your minority, they start to feel indicative and you start to feel burdened by that. What I would be interested in is how burdened do most Black people feel about this?
Hmm.
Unfortunately, and this is where and this is, I'm gonna say racist, but like some people will look at it and be like, and this is part of why I'm writing this book on racial trauma. Some people will look at this and they will start cherry picking. Well, Will Smith didn't get taken out, and then that's their platform for their argument. Will Smith still won Best Actor. Will Smith is not going to have his award taken away. There'll be sanctions. I mean, he's going to get something. Something's going to happen.
Right.
But there are double standards. These types of situations reveal them because here's the thing about Will. Will, kind of like Michael Jackson, he cut across culture.
Right.
Think about this. Before this situation, and you know more than I do, so I'm just asking this out of ignorance even. Before this situation, how well was Will accepted by white people?
Well, there's a term for people like him, Snoop Dogg. Um, they're known as Magic Negroes,
Talk to me.
right? Magic Negroes are the ones that white people actually feel safe with because they give them a very sanitized, even Snoop Dogg to a certain extent, they give them a sanitized view of blackness in which they can engage black culture without feeling threatened. And there's certain people that have that ability, and Will Smith is one of them. He's a
What
Magic
do you
Negro.
mean? Break that down for me a little bit more as far as Will Smith being one of those.
That white people get a sense of blackness from him, but it's a safe environment in which they get to engage blackness.
That's fair.
and he's a one man bubble. You could go in to what's known as the Will Smith, and he kind of gives you a curated sense of blackness that white people are comfortable with, and he's very good in creating that atmosphere for them.
Yeah, again, this is where I think culturally speaking, like when I think about the number one consumership of rap music, who is it? Right?
Right,
Uh, this is where I go back to what I was saying earlier about follow the money. Dude's gonna be in movies again. Like people, I mean, dude, this sounds bad. Our world is corrupted, bro.
right,
Like seriously. And I look at it in like part of racism is about business. It's about controlling where how the money works.
sure,
And I think in some ways there's gonna be people who understand the game well enough, they're gonna play both sides to try to make money off of it.
right,
So for me, I look at him and it's like somebody's gonna try to capture what's going on for their own gain. At the end of the day, who gets to control the narrative? People with money, people with influence. And he's with those people. So he's going to get a chance to reinvent himself. You know what I mean? And not a lot of other black people can.
mm,
There's black people at the top, and they have, oh gosh, they have mechanisms. They have a network that works, and it allows them to escape some of the the orbit of blackness sometimes.
right, right. So, lastly, before we get out of here, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, as believers,
Mhm.
we live in the world, but we're not of the world.
Yep.
But we also can learn from the world as well, right? What do you feel like is a healthy Christian perspective on this event? And is there anything that we could learn from this event as believers?
Yes. Bible says, "Get rid of all rage, brawling, slander." In Colossians, and get rid yourself of rage.
Hmm.
The way to rid yourself of rage is to be healed. In First Peter, it talks about by His wounds we are healed. Um, when we're forgiven, God pulls out the log, but He spends the rest of our lives pulling out all those little splinters.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So some of those splinters are about us, and some of those splinters about others. And I think as Christians, man, we have to be so careful
Say
because
it again. Say that. That was so prolific. Say it again.
what?
Some of the splinters are us. Some of the splinters is but others.
Yeah.
That's deep. Yeah. I'm sorry.
And so again, outbursts, fits of rage, we see that in Galatians. This is not how the people of God need to be known for. But in order to consistently be able to walk in the spirit, you have to really go through healing. I would say in all of us, there are those Smith wounds that
Right.
we may not even be aware of. And so I just want people, like I saw something in the chat about, compassion on comedians and stuff like that. And I get that. And I respect that comment that that person made. Um, but they're people. And so I think we have to realize what it means to be human. And so I would encourage people to take inventory. I mean, we lead
Mm.
unexamined lives until something happens, and now we get characterized by that.
Mm.
So don't lead an unexamined life. Really kind of check it out, man. Do I have something in me that's unhealed? Um, and then the other aspect, as far as believers and so forth like that, to pray. I like to, I haven't prayed for Will, but after this, I will. Um, I pray that he gets healing, but bro, this is a serious stain, and that's where I don't even think Will understands the gravity of it.
Mm.
And this is kind of what I was wanting to know your opinion on all the God stuff he brought in.
Right.
You know what I mean? How did that land with you?
It didn't land well because he's not a proponent of Orthodox Christianity at all. So the fact that he brought out God to help him out here, to me it was a bit hypocritical, because he's like, oh, you can't trust someone who had to believe that their God was born from a virgin. Like he said that, but now you want to talk about God? I'm like, so now God is convenient now. You know what I mean? So I found that as odd. You know what I mean? So that's my take on it. Or maybe this may be the beginning of him changing. Maybe he turned the corner. maybe Jesus being born from a virgin isn't that bad of a thing now for him. I mean, I don't know.
Well,
You
real
know.
quick, what do you think about Denzel?
Oh, I think what he said was on point. That was very profound. He needed to hear that before, though. It's good that he heard it, period. But he needed to hear that prior to the situation. Maybe that would have helped. I don't know. So,
But again, we go into situations and we think we're going to be okay. Like,
right,
I'm sure he sat down. I'm hearing he knew he was going to win Best Actor, but we sit down, we think we cool, and then one person says something to us, and all of our Christian morality and all of that, all the things we're supposed to walk in,
right,
with the Spirit, it kind of just goes. And this is where I believe it's in. I want it's Psalms or Isaiah. I got to find it, but the Bible talk, I was a brute beast before you. There's these moments that we act really animal like,
right.
and God, we're human. We're supposed to conquer some of those things. And I just think my hope is that people don't just point the finger at him, but they look at themselves. Like for me, I mean, I got counseling. I mean, I'm a therapist, but every good therapist has one.
Right.
So for me, it's like I don't ever stop working through that stuff. It's not just about self-control. You have to literally be healed in order to become more self-controlled.
Wow. Okay. That's powerful. That's powerful. But before we wrap it up, because you're doing double duty over here. You're
We
giving us
sleep. Go
you
ahead.
give
Go ahead, Dogo. Go ahead.
deep analysis and taking care of the little one.
Woo, bro.
It's amazing. But if we could take just a few questions from the audience pertaining to the slap, you know, and while we're waiting for some of those questions to generate, Mr. Spears, can you talk about your YouTube channel and what can we be expecting from you in the immediate future?
Man, dude, things are getting crazy. Like, so my YouTube channel, True Trauma Theology, um, I really study that intersect between trauma and what's happened in our churches and helping Christians who are struggling. They have conscience hangups, even
Right.
sometimes with embracing trauma or psychology. You know what I mean? Like it feels risky sometimes to admit that. Like I've got trauma or whatever. But dude, the channel is growing. I just reached over 3,000 subscribers or whatever, and um I've got speaking. I'm in the process of trying to help establish a network worldwide of counselors and Christians and so forth. I mean, there's a lot. I've got a couple videos coming up in the next month. I'm getting into what is a cult,
Uh-oh.
religious bullying,
Uh-oh.
disfellowshipping, restoration, um, and then like certain triggers. Like so, for some religious groups, like you can get triggered when the minister starts talking about like numbers and stats.
All right.
I'm gonna get onto that. Like, so I'm going in, bro. I'm taking the safety. Sorry, I probably wouldn't. But I'm about to really go because honestly, last year, bro. Like, here's the reality. Last year, I really tried to play nice in the sandbox. I really did. I didn't. Dude, you got to be careful not to create stumbling blocks. But there comes a point where, like, man, I'm just going for it. Like, we're gonna talk. We're gonna get real about some stuff that affects Christians who are trying to stay faithful.
Well, we need that prophetic voice, bro. That's a good thing. As long as you're not doing it maliciously and you're here to help people heal, sometimes that means putting your foot up someone's butt spiritually. But before we continue, Benjamin wanted me to read this super chat. First of all, thank you for the super chat, Benjamin. Because we need more cultural insight like this more often. BK Podges, I need you to come out of hiding.
Yeah,
I didn't know I was hiding, Ben, but
bro,
okay, I
bro.
duly noted. You know, so
Alfredo, you incredible, bro. I'm about to encourage you, bro. Seriously, man. I'm grateful for you. You're part of why my channel's grown. You give me crazy, amazing advice. You are one of the most thoughtful, logically sound people I know.
wow.
Uh, I would feel comfortable with you sitting down with Ben Shapiro. You know what I mean? Like you're a whiz, bro. And the resources you give your Patreons and stuff like that. I mean, I really appreciate you, dude.
Thank you,
All
sir.
the other
Thank you.
people do
Thank you.
too.
Let's see here. Well, what's going on here? Yes, my man Jimmy. Thank you so much for your super chat. I'm so sorry. There's just so much stuff going on here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. BK and protect. No, I am not in a protection program. I haven't slapped nobody yet. Yet. So no, I'm not hiding. I'm not hiding. Um,
Oh, hold on. This CC Fox, I saw the beginning of that good hair um thing they talked about. Yeah, that I like. Yeah, thank you for bringing that. Whoever that was, I saw that. I didn't know he produced that though, or whatever.
yeah, he did. He did. That was his film. He produced that
Dude, these
film.
comedians, man, the only person who maybe could have gotten away with it would have been Dave Chappelle.
Hmm.
Like, but is Dave Chappelle ever going to host the Oscars?
Nah, nah, nah. That's never gonna happen.
Nah.
So, any questions for Mr. Spears?
I appreciate your audience, bro.
Oh no, these are the best. It's the party people, man. Kidding me?
Yeah, you got good people.
I mean, almost anybody in this chat right here will give most pagans the business. So, got a lot. I got a lot of assassins.
Do you think Chris Rock is a misogynist?
Wow. So I think. I mean, he's definitely said some disparaging things about women, right? That's happened. Um, he's divorced. He cheated on his wife. You know, so based on that data, you know, it doesn't look good for him when it comes to that accusation. But to say definitively that he is, I can't. Though he's done some things that are questionable.
Well, but look at Ricky Gervais, right? He was it the Golden Globes or whatever he does 5 times. Dude is uncouth. Like I've never seen anyone get away with what Ricky Gervais gets away with when he roasts people in award shows. And he pees people off. Don't get me wrong. Like Tom Hanks, like gave him the stink eye. I mean, and he makes gender jokes.
Right.
And I do think there's a bit of a double standard. So yeah, there is.
Actually, you know what? Benjamin brought up thing. I got to be in a Zoom call with Kyle. Yeah, we did that for all the patrons when
Yeah.
I first started. We need to do another one if you're up to it, Kyle, for my Patreon people.
Well, hey, I will, but you got to come on my channel, man. I need to get you in, bro.
Hey,
I'm
say
pressing,
less.
dude. Like I'm getting cancel culture. I'm doing white national, like Christian nationalism. Sorry, I said white nationalism. Christian nationalism.
Same thing. No, I'm
Yeah. um,
uh,
I have a conflict mediation worldwide conflict mediation guy who's going to be coming in, talking about cancel culture. Dude, I'm going in. Like we're getting even like when you think about the next election cycle, man, it's time to start talking about some of that stuff.
right,
Do you
right,
think Will
right.
Smith is and feels entitled? Yes. Yeah. Great. Hey, Alejandro? Yeah. Yeah. I wonder what Alejandro thinks.
mm, mm.
Yeah. I mean, Alfredo, what do you think? Yeah, bro. I mean, what do you think, Alfredo?
Well, he felt entitled to slap Earth, Wind, and Fire out of Chris Rock in front of the whole world. You know what I mean? So he felt very entitled at that moment. So,
That's what we call in the marriage and family therapy business destructive entitlement. There's a get all
mm,
fancy, but contextual family therapy, they have all these different fancy terms. But destructive entitlement is that.
mm.
Um, it's kind of like mind over matter. I don't mind and you don't matter.
Yeah, but I'm bummed. Right. Another question here from Jimmy. Do you think Chris Rock joke was wrong and should apologize?
The Bible says, Ephesians 4:28 through 5:3, I think. Do not let any unwholesome talk. I think it's important to understand what unwholesome means. But man, like to apply that to the world, we can't hold the world accountable. Like when they don't sign up to be on the team, it's hard to hold them accountable, right? But they still have to deal with the consequences of their sin. Chris Rock, I mean, he's not really following Ephesians 4:28 through 5:3. So, I mean, what is his standard?
Right. Right. That's the whole point. Yeah, that's the thing. He doesn't have the same. So we can't hold him to a standard that he himself doesn't subscribe to. So I would agree with that. Let's see what else here. Can we see the baby?
All right, don't tell my wife. No. Hey, baby girl. If she wakes up,
It's Nate's fault.
sorry, she's asleep. Hmm. I'm not gonna show her face. My wife
Okay.
will.
Yes.
Mm. She was born December 30th. December 30th.
Wow, wow.
Yeah.
So see what else here. Tyler asks, do you think Jada has any part to play in her husband's emotional downfall?
Tyler, thank you for asking that, bro. Um see, I might watch the interview. I mean, I'm a bit saturated with it all just because people talk about it a certain way that is at times very one dimensional. But why did Jada step out? Did Will step out? Do we know? I don't know that he did, but if he did, um, I want to know when she had that look on her face, what Will took from her. Because again, a marriage speaks a certain language that only two people speak.
Right.
So whatever the look was on her face, communicated something. But I have a hard time believing that she wanted him to go up and do that. And so that's where Will is responsible for his actions. He made a gross error. Truly, he cut. I mean, it's like what Peter, or Jesus. It's basically Peter cut the dude's arm off, or ear off, or whatever. And this,
Right.
Jesus,
Right.
and put your sword down. You live by the sword, you die by the sword. And so that again, I go back to militarized concepts of masculinity. Does she endorse that? And you hear people even talking about that, like who she went out with was like an artist or whatever he was, and does Will feel like he needed to man up and like I mean, it's like he went Uncle Phil, bro. You know what I'm saying? Oh man, that was a really good question by Tyler.
That's
I don't
good
know,
stuff.
Alfredo, what do you think?
What that
She had a part to play.
I mean, again, it's conjecture on my part. A lot of it has to do with what I think is going on behind the scenes in their relationship.
Hmm.
And it kind of feels like he's done a bunch of stuff and he's just been really good at covering it. But for him to pay penance, he has to do certain things for her now. It kind of, and again, this is all conjecture on my part. That's why I felt like for him to sit down during that red table talk and to hear her retell the tale of the entanglement and him to sit and just listen to it, and he was not happy to be there. It was quite obvious.
Alfredo, why would they do it on TV?
That's what I'm saying. I feel like it was revenge. It was a get back. He did something to her so egregious in her mind that the only way we could be even Steven is you let me do this in front of you, in front of the whole world. So
Yeah.
I almost feel like he's trying to like, I think he said this earlier. He's trying to like kind of earn points because he's working from a deficit in his marriage. And then when the joke occurred, he laughed, looked at her, saw her face, and his mind's like, "Oh man, here we go again. I gotta do something. If I don't do something, it's not gonna go well for me after this." So he went and did that craziness, And my wife concurs. She says the entanglement left him vulnerable. So,
Well, go back. Let's see. Entanglement left him vulnerable. Do you think he felt vulnerable?
in a sense that he didn't know this, he couldn't do the sensible thing. I think he felt like he needed to do something bigger than life to appease her. And again, conjecture, because I don't know. But from what little I have seen, I don't know what they've shown us as a couple, and it just feels like he's working from a deficit in his marriage. and he just needed to do this to somehow win favor with his own wife somehow.
Well, the dude was on his own planet when he did it.
Right.
There were different physics on the planet he was on. Dude was not there. That's kind of what we get into with like deeper trauma. I mean, like that was a complete reaction.
Sure.
And I think like Charlemagne said, Will bled on a dude who didn't cut him.
Mm.
Like, did Chris Rock really cut him? Like, it takes more than that. Like, okay, imagine
I think she's the one that cut him.
what that, bro, without question. And they use the media, bro. This is why you got to be careful with the media. When you use the media, you get used by the media. It's a leverage game, like the whole thing. And so then it's like you put your business out there for everyone to see.
Right.
I just, man, the boundaries are really bad, man. And even like we're not even taught like entanglement. Like that's an interesting keyword.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
let's just call it out. What in your mind was it? Like what do you consider to be an entanglement?
Well, what she described wasn't an affair. It was
Okay.
you committed a. Well, they said they took. Was there a separation at the time? Did they take a break? Now, for a believer, I don't believe in none of that. But I'm just saying, from the world standard, they weren't together at the time when that happened. Supposedly, people
That
in the
happened.
chat, can you fact check me real quick?
I have people all the time. I don't know, but I have people all the time who come in, and the argument is always, "We weren't together." Yes, we were. We weren't together. Yes, we were. Always. Like
Timeline, like you said, timelines, right? But
when Will was laughing at the joke too until he looked at Jada.
yeah, exactly. That's true. That's true. And then he went ballistic.
Oh, bro. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being very docile and just like on a beach in Tahiti, calm, and then the other one is literally nuclear. Where would you put, per your
Oh,
perspective?
DefCon 5, bro. It was like it was nuclear fallout. Like it was Conan the Barbarian time. Like he stomped over there, smacked him, and sat down and articulated his hatred for what he did, for what Rock said to his wife. I mean, yeah, bro, it was oof. It was oof. But before we get out of here, so we had a couple questions. That was cool. You let us know what you are working on. Let me say what I'm about to do in
Yes, sir.
next few days. Well, this Friday, in fact, me and some of the brothers from the bodega will be addressing Sarah Sutin Seti, and he doesn't understand the crucifixion. He recently made a video talking about the crucifixion, and he just said a whole bunch of lies. Well, I don't want to say lie. He's very, very misinformed, and we'll be taking our time to address his misinformation. And then next Wednesday, I'm going to be choosing violence, and I'll be doing a show about is Passover pagan? Does the festival come from pagan origins? I'm sure a lot of people are going to be happy about that video. But yeah. So with that being said, uh, I think we're gonna let it go right now. Mr. Spears, is there anything you want to say before we wrap this up?
Dude, I love your subscriber base, bro. Like I look forward to coming back, and I just, you got a really good tribe here. A really good tribe. And
Yeah,
it's really cool to
these
build
are
a
my peoples,
community.
man.
I mean,
These are
being in
my
social
peoples.
media and all that sometimes is lonely and you're just putting out content or whatever, but to have a community, like to me, that means a lot. And this is a legit community, man. I love coming out here, man. I got a lot of respect for everybody.
Well, they love you. This is your community too, bro. You're part of all this,
Well,
man.
I got to partner a little bit more. Amen.
That this is true. This is true. And hopefully, we'll see more of you. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, um, it has been a pleasure. It's Kyle Spears, BK Apologist signing off. Peace.